Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Step into the Pivot. We are welcoming a wonderful guest today. So excited to talk to her more. I love your accent, Melissa. Melissa Terito, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I love your accent too, Eva.
It
Mine's a
is.
southern drawl.
Does yours also become thicker if you're tired or upset? Mine is more noticeable if I'm, in a particular emotional state.
It does also that, and if I've had a little too much wine.
Ah.
Fair enough.
So, Melissa, also, we do know that your friends and family call you Missy.
Yeah, they
Um, and we might slip into that as the conversation continues. You have been described as the woman with all ideas. You have background in teaching. You're an educator. You are a very important contributor to the retirement services industry. You do a lot of different things, and you translate a lot of different, you translate a lot. And one of the things that you do is, and I mean that metaphorically, obviously, and we'll see as we dig in. I think you help people really communicate. And one of the ways in which you communicate ideas is through your amazing podcast that Teresa and I were so blessed to be on, Louisiana Ladies. And you are, what I'm noticing, not only a woman of ideas and with ideas, but you do take them into action and you practice what you teach and you are out there authentically. And it's just such a joy to have you here on the show.
thank
Teresa?
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here. Thank y'all.
Yeah. So, Melissa and I've known each other for a while, very similar backgrounds in some cases. But what I really want to start with as we start this conversation is you were a teacher in your past life. And I know several of my friends are teachers or were teachers. And it is one of the most thankless jobs in a lot of ways, to be honest. It should be amazing. One of my very good friends, she always says that she would enjoy being a teacher so much more if all the children were orphans. But that's a whole another conversation. But you decided to leave teaching and become an accountant. Can you kind of talk about that journey a little bit and why you made that huge pivot? Because that's a big change for you.
Yeah, it's I'd graduate. I'm gonna try to make this real quick, all right? But I it was a longer journey than me just saying, okay, I'm gonna leave teaching, right? My whole life I had wanted to be a teacher, but for some reason when I started at LSU here in Baton Rouge, I started in like pre-dentistry. So clearly I did not really know what I wanted to do. I mean, I'd be a terrible dentist or any medical thing. But I ended up pursuing secondary education with a concentration in math. And quite frankly, I'm good at math. It's easy for me. My grandfather had his PhD in statistics. He was in an executive position at LSU. Unfortunately, he passed away I was 6 and he was probably not even 60 yet. But that math gene kind of flows through to all the grandkids. And so I always liked math and I always would tutor. So I started teaching and it was real weird. In my first year, I was just loving it. It was what I wanted to do. I taught at a great school here in Baton Rouge. I really did have good students. I had good parents, good administration. About the third year, though, I don't know how to explain this other than I got the itch to want to do something different. And it was a weird feeling because, and I tell people this in all honesty. I was not miserable teaching. I wasn't burned out from teaching. I didn't hate teaching. I just felt like, even though teaching is a calling, I felt like I was personally and professionally called to do something else, but I didn't know what. So that was tough for this type A personality that kind of likes to figure things out. And so I went through a year of exploratory phase of asking people what they did and, do you like it? Are you challenged? Because teaching has its own challenges, but those were not the challenges that I necessarily wanted, right? Like I could sit here and tell somebody what the quadratic formula is over and over and over again, right? So it became a little bit repetitive to me. But one of my good friends essentially we're still good friends today. We talked together. She went back to school to pursue an accounting degree and a CPA license. And so I called her, and that's really what started me going down the path. And my last year, my fourth and final year of teaching, I was like, you know what? What do I have to lose? I'm young. I still think I'm young, but I was young then. I was like 27, and I didn't, I knew I could go to LSU and take a couple of classes, and that wasn't. I'm not a big risk taker, right? That wasn't a lot of risk to me. Took a couple of accounting classes. Of course, I loved it, and everybody's like, "Well, accounting's not math." I'm like, "But it's still numbers, okay?" And I'm still solving a problem. And so that was really it. I knew at that point that it was time for me to leave, and Baton Rouge is a big small town, so I had some connections at the CPA firm that I'm at now, and they hired me in their 401k department, and I walked in this first day and had no idea what I was doing. So that's really it. I just was looking for something different to do,
You fell into it just like most of us do, right?
as we all do, and then we don't get out of it.
That's right, because it is so interesting, and there's so much to do and so much to explore and so many different, skills you can use to be really good at it. It's you know, I would love to highlight something. When you talked about that it and how you're owning that you weren't miserable, but you were listening. Oh my goodness, what a great example. This is something I teach people. So I just want to use this opportunity here to pause and look at this together. I feel like this is that moment where you're starting to tell yourself something and you are catching it when it's still in whisper form. Often we override these, now it's a nudge. I'm feeling okay. It's not really, I don't experience a lot of, you know, discomfort right now with my situation. I'm not suffering, but I'm listening. Something's talking. So cool that you were able to hear it because we get these messages. They're kind of soft. So often we disregard them, don't listen. Then they're going to get louder. Life gets more uncomfortable. Situations get more, complicated, and then the voice gets louder and louder. But like, good for you for catching it in good form, like in gentle whisper form. As you reflect back on the changes and the decisions that you made, and then, here you are now, you're in a place where, quote unquote, you don't know what you're doing. Can you highlight some of the hard aspects of it, hardest, things that had to do with this, new space, leaving the old space?
So I will say that one of the hardest things for me was so when you were teaching and you're a teacher, your mindset is still a little bit more of the school. Like, I mean, not you're not in school, but you are still your calendar is still associated with all of the holidays. And you know, I don't know how else to put this. It took some coaching by my mentor for me to have more of a business framed mind and that culture than teaching. So I feel like if people were to ask me what's hard and what we do is so technical, they would think that that's the answer, but that's not really the answer that was that hard. Because guess what? That's still hard today because the retirement industry is constantly changing. But what was hard was a mindset shift in terms of I'm no longer a teacher. Here's kind of business etiquette. Learning the business side of things was the hardest part for me. Um, and I will be honest, and we've all taken exams. I'm so glad I passed that CPA exam. That was a very proud moment for myself. I'm not gonna lie. That was hard taking and passing the CPA exam and having to take about 60 hours at LSU, that was hard. It was a big a time commitment. When I go back and think about it, and at that point I was married. My husband and I do not have any children, but I mean, really, I was studying every night or I was working all day and going to school at night. That was actually hard. I don't know if I just kind of went through the motions or I was just so driven at that time to get that done. But like, if somebody told me I had to do that now for 2.5 years, I'd be like, no, I'm not going to do that. That was hard.
Yeah. I know that you're an athletic person and that you value, the importance of physical exercise and that you um, practice. I don't know what the correct verb is, play, practice, enjoy pickleball. What came up for me as you were talking about the exam is how much stamina is required when we're doing something like this. Between the three of us, we probably have a lot of experience with all kinds of certifications and in industry exams. And some of the hardest aspects of, of those is the physical challenge of like you got to sit there and sit after sitting and learn and yeah, I mean it's a stamina game too, and you have to figure out how to take good care of the body while you're creating room for, learning the new concepts. Does that resonate with you, Melissa? Like what a
Oh, oh,
challenging
yeah.
thing it was from that standpoint too?
Oh, yes. And so I will tell you, I'm a big proponent in moving your body, and probably to the point where I annoy people, right? Probably like a year or two into teaching, I never really. I know this isn't a podcast about physical fitness, but it does parlay into your mental well-being. About a year or two into teaching, I started lifting weights and I started exercising. I started running. I no longer run, but and even when I was studying for the CPA exam, even now, that is a non-negotiable for me. It is a stress reliever for me. That is me time for me. Like that, like working out or playing, like that's not a chore for me. That is me time. And I think what it did was it ultimately gave my brain, it gives your brain a mental break to keep going. In full disclosure, though, when I was sitting for the CPA exam, I was about 2 years into this. And looking back, 2 years into it, this industry was hard. I almost feel like it's gotten harder. I don't know if that's just my position or all of these changes, but again, I don't know if I would have the stamina now after all of the, and because I wasn't a decision maker when I was here. That's what I should put it like that. I wasn't making decisions. I was learning the technical piece of it. I wasn't managing people. So in full disclosure, that's a different environment. Y'all know that. I mean, that's just a different environment than a business owner mentality. So I do think that the timing probably worked in my favor at that particular point, to be able to successfully study and complete the CPA exam. Because look, the CPA exams, like the exams that you guys have taken, ti put the time into it. That's it. And you got to be disciplined to put the time into it, just like you got to be disciplined to work out and you got to be disciplined to run a business. To me, it goes back to discipline.
No, I love that you say that. And I love that you talked about the physical fitness aspect because we talk a lot about that, how that is part, whether you meditate, whether you just do something to move your body, whatever works for you, but having something that you can focus on is so important. So I love that you talked about that. And you're right, like taking those exams is so exhausting and you have to do that. So clearly you did well. Clearly you were doing well in this business. In 2016, I think you were approached to become a partner in your firm.
Mhm.
And I don't, and I think as women, and maybe not just as women, but I think you didn't recognize that maybe you had the skills to do that, or be that business owner. So can you talk a little about what pushed you that way? And I think it was a person, a mentor. You mentioned a mentor. Can you talk a little about that experience? Because I think it's so important that sometimes we don't listen to those people who are trying to advise us and really try to help us or see what we're capable of that we can't see in ourselves.
Absolutely. I will tell you this. So, my predecessor's name is David. Him and I still keep in touch. And I'll say this, and even if he listens to this, he knows this. He was a tough man to work for because he held people to a high standard. Um, but I had so much admiration and respect for him that that at the end of the day, if he believed in me, it inherently just made me believe in myself. I don't really know. It's just, like He had started the CPA firm. He had started the TPA practice within the CPA firm. And I mean, truthfully, we talked on Louisiana Ladies about imposter syndrome. I mean, David's telling me for 3 years he needs somebody, he needs a succession plan. He thinks I'm a succession plan. He told me that the day he interviewed me. Not that I'm a succession plan, but he was looking to retire. And I'm like, I'm just trying to get hired. Okay. I need a job at this point. Um, I have preached this though, Teresa, that having an advocate and a mentor is, and it could be at any point in your career, is just paramount, right? So, a part of me, did I want to make David proud? Yes, but his belief in me and the fact that he pushed me, he made me get comfortable with being uncomfortable, which is probably the biggest thing that he taught me, that you're going to go into situations that are going to be uncomfortable, but I know that you can handle it, right? Over time, though, I will say, and this probably wasn't super evident to me until maybe 2013 or 2014. you know, Again, I came into this industry really thinking that I've got to be the best at the compliance testing. I've got to be the best at plan design. And truthfully, and I'll tell people this, I'm not the best at that. I've got people on my team that are really good at it, but it took me a long time to identify what could be called a unique ability, for lack of better words. And once I was able to identify that and then realize how that could put me on a trajectory for leadership. But I mean, that's probably a 5-year journey for me to even get there. I always joke, I tell people in high school, I didn't get into National Honor Society because they asked me what my leadership qualities were, and I put that I didn't have any. Okay. So, because to me, I wasn't a leader. Now, my friends joke, they're like, Missy, you've bossed people around your whole life. I'm like, well, no, I didn't, I guess I just didn't really see that in me. But, that's really what it is. But sometimes we need somebody else to tell us that we can do it and to push us. My personality also lends itself to be, good, bad, or ugly. I don't know how you want to put it. I'm stubborn as all get out. And if somebody's going, if I'm challenged in a way, well, by golly, I am going to go do it and I'm going to probably kill it, so.
So let's see. So you're self-aware. You are kind of moment by moment, day by day, consistently working on personal development. You are open to learning and curious. You are brave. And then you
This
have a lot
podcast.
of subject matter expertise. You keep learning. You have, tested a lot of things. And okay, so I'm hearing a lot of leadership qualities here, Teresa. Can you define that for yourself and for us now? Teresa, please, you were gonna say
No,
something
no,
first.
I was going to say, yeah, I think she has a lot of those qualities. I was definitely agreeing. I loved your recap list, honestly.
Yeah. So, conscious leadership is an it's a school of thought, it's an approach, it's a model, it is something teachable. And what I love doing is, pointing out when someone is a conscious leader and maybe they don't even, mention that or talk about it in their day to day, but like, hey, Melissa, did you know that everything you just shared to us about yourself, like that's a definition basically of a conscious leader. So someone who is, available inside and out for the qualities of going first and trying and discovering things and turning around and saying, hey, come on over here, well, we can do this together, let's so the combination of some of the things that you were talking about that make a good teacher. And how I introduced you as a translator, I think you have this quality of being able to translate difficult ideas and concepts. And yeah, please, it looks like this is resonating, so tell us.
Well, when you said that, it's so interesting to me. It is, and I would have never ever thought this because I didn't know much about the industry when I started. Like Teresa said, fell into it like everybody else, and then you don't leave, right? But um, my teaching background and probably my tutoring background, even in high school, when I tell you that comes in handy in this particular industry because teaching is ultimately translating. You're taking something, no matter if you're teaching 12th graders or you're teaching kindergartners, at some point you're translating. And so I will say this, I have two other ex-teachers on my team within the Sentinel department, and I'm not actively taking them from the teaching profession because we need teachers, but they make they're good TPAs because of the natural ability to be able to translate and explain things, right? And over time, even I realized that that was a skill that I had that not everyone walking into this profession necessarily has, and that's not a bad thing. It can be coached, but I really think I took for granted the fact that when I talk to someone, it comes naturally to me to want to explain it to them, for them to want to feel comfortable. I think that comes back from my teaching background. And I actually did a presentation at ASPA where we were doing, we did a role play on how to explain it to a client. I was the client. I had so much fun being the difficult client to Justin Benestro. Okay. I was very difficult. But one of the things him and I talked about is we're translators, like, to me, I can rattle off something like 401(a)(4). Me and Teresa know what that means, but nobody else knows what that means, or do they get really want to know that level of detail? So I think that it's an important skill to have, but it did take me a while to understand that that skill could really help in this particular career. Was a very positive thing.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, I don't think anybody else cares what what
I
that is.
don't.
But
I love talking about it though.
I know. And then, the other thing I was going to say is, don't feel bad about taking those teachers. I had a really good friend who was a teacher, and she came to me and she goes, can you give me a job? And I was like, no, you're an amazing teacher. And she goes, I'll tell you, I understand what you're saying. She goes, but I'm leaving anyway.
Yeah,
So I'd love for you to
the
give me a
same
chance. And I did. And like you said, she is amazing at this job because, right, they're amazing. Teachers are amazing. Honestly, they don't get really enough credit.
They don't.
Okay, they don't. So as we wrap up, so you've had these pivots, you've had these amazing pivots, you're doing really well. How are these a step forward? What's next for you? What do you see? What did you get out of these pivots? What would you like to share?
So I would say that every time there was a pivot, there was also a little bit of fear of said pivot. And if said pivot was going to work, was it going to work? I mean, I would be lying if I said I wasn't fearful that I was going to try this whole accounting thing, then TPA thing I didn't know anything about. And what if I felt the same way I did about teaching? But to me, I've just been given so many opportunities that I'm very grateful for that, what's next for me is to continue to pursue some public speaking on the side of what I'm doing. I love the sales aspect of what we do. I love meeting new people. I'm not real good sitting behind a desk for a couple hours, just to be 100% honest. So, that's really what I see. But also, what difference, and this is not to be cliche, but what difference can I make in this industry? Um, that was one of the reasons why I accepted a position on ASPA's Leadership Council, because I feel like I would have a voice when it comes to that. And honestly, Teresa, and I think that you resonate, and even a same with you, as I'm getting in my mid 40s, there's younger women that I want to mentor and take under my wing, and they might be business owners. That brings me so much joy to be able to mentor someone, to give them the push that I was given, to push them out of their comfort zone and watch them succeed. So that's really where I'm at right now. And I mean, I'm posting to LinkedIn a lot. Okay. I'm very proud of my LinkedIn. That's my proud of myself moment.
No, no, no. And I love that because I agree with you. That's been one of my biggest joys is really mentoring others and really being able to help them and give advice and, push them in a direction that really works for them. So I so appreciate you that you said that. And I so appreciate you being here today. Even what are your final thoughts?
I love the blending. I see that in both of you. Melissa, I really want to presence that here. The blending of um, mentoring and sponsoring and advocating and, let's do more of exactly that. Like it is important to understand the difference between when we're mentoring someone, and then when we're being in a sponsor mode, and when
Yep.
we're advocating for them behind their back. And you do that regularly. But I love the, the blending of that. You can be different things to the same person. Not things. You can be in different roles, in different, in these different, stepping into these different opportunities, and do the same thing for yourself too. There's going to be a moment when you're recognizing I need to be, I need to be really disciplined and focused right now. And maybe I'm not so excited about being at the desk, but that's what's called for. And then I'm listening. I'm like, my body's so uncomfortable right now. I'm going to go and do that on my non-negotiable and move the body. And then I'm going to let myself really prioritize on my calendar that I am an extrovert. I love being out there. I love, serving the industry by, communicating. And I'm just pointing out, like, I love having this conversation about, is it sales? Is it service? Is it, at the end of the day, it's you showing up authentically, responding to what the moment calls for. So thanks so much for modeling that for us and teaching about it.
Thank y'all so much. This podcast made me feel real good about myself.
Good. Well, we're hoping it did. So, and we're hoping your story makes others feel really good about themselves. So that's what's important to us.
And that's why I like to share it, to be honest.
Awesome.
That I think sometimes when people look, and when I say it, oh, I was a teacher and now I'm a partner within a CPA firm and a business owner, somebody told me, she goes, you just glossed over that. And I was like, oh yeah. It was scary.
Yeah. No, it's totally true. We tend to do that, but I'm glad that you're talking about it. You're amazing, Melissa Terito. Thank you so much for being here with us today on Step into the Pivot. And to our listeners, remember, if you have a pivot, step into it.
Thank y'all.